This episode of On the Beat is brought to you by Ingles. Shop online with Ingles Curbside Pickup. New curbside stores opening every week. Please welcome Mike Griffith.
Hello, everybody. Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beat show, and I cannot wait to get to our guest. Matt Hayes will join us. He's from 1010 XL in Jacksonville. You may know him from Saturday Down South, previously Sporting News, and Matt and I am sure, are going to engage in a conversation that will keep you on the edge of your seat, because Matt and I do not hold back. When you have friends on, there's two ways that can go, right? Some friends, you got to kind of be careful, but nobody wants to hurt each other's feelings, bruise each other. That's not the case here. Okay, we know each other too well. We're going after it, and we don't always agree. And so I'm sure I'm going to throw some things out there that he's going to slam and reject. And there's going to be things he's going to say that don't make any sense. No, I'm just kidding. He's outstanding. His analysis is spot on. He's covered the SEC for over 30 years. One of the best out there. You're really going to enjoy that. And then, of course, the hot and cold segment. And there was plenty of hot things in Dallas, not just the weather, but some commentary from some of these coaches was smoking hot. And some of it was just like, what are you thinking, man? And I'm sitting back there taking notes like, okay, yeah, this is going to be on the show, because that was really bad. Really bad. They need to have like speech writers now. Now that there's this social media and all this exposure, some of these schools should really invest in people to help these coaches out, because coaches live in their own world, right? Like, these are the guys that don't know how to use the machines in the grocery line. They walk around their building and say things, and other people just nod, that normal people would be like, are you crazy, man? Nobody gives them a check. Well, you're going to hear some comments that some coaches made that I think somebody in the building should have said, listen, coach, I love you. Promise me you're not going to fire me for saying this, but don't say that in Dallas. Wrong thing to say. There was a lot of that going on, and I'm going to pick out a couple instances. Now, you have heard me take the high road, maybe even come across as a little arrogant when I say I don't vote in the SEC order of finish. Everybody there is eligible to have a vote. And I say, I'm not doing it. And it's not because I don't think my vote counts. I mean, of course it'll count. It's because there's always going to be a couple of clowns that are going to pick Vanderbilt to win the league. And certainly it happened again. This is not funny. That's not funny. Find those people, take their credentials, run them out of town. This is the SEC, man. We're serious about football. I don't want anybody picking Vanderbilt to win the league. Or listen, I like Shane Beamer as much as anybody, but somebody picked South Carolina to win it. Give me a break. How many people voted here? 165 people voted Georgia number one. That is the safe and smart pick. 27 picked Texas. Okay, there's a few more Texas. 12 pick Alabama. 4 pick Ole Miss. I'm good with this. 2 pick LSU. I don't even mind that. Missouri, Tennessee didn't get a vote. Somebody could have picked Missouri, and I'd been okay. But out of 165 plus 27 is 192, plus 12 is 204, plus 4 is 208, 210, 211, 200, 213 people voted, and 3 people picked South Carolina or Vanderbilt. And that is why I do not vote, because it is an insult to our intelligence, and I am not going to take part in such tomfoolery. Now, I will give you my thoughts. Yes, I would pick Georgia to win the SEC. I will pick Georgia to go undefeated. They got Carson Beck. Sky's the limit. That's what the tattoo on his leg says. The new tattoo on his leg. Now, I think he wears one of those leg sleeves so you don't see it. But maybe he'll show that off. I don't know. Maybe when he signs autographs. Carson's told us before he's got 3 different autographs. It depends on, if people are paying or where he's at or how much time he has. I'd say, Carson, can you sign Sky's the Limit for me? I like Carson Beck's attitude. I love the swag. I love the confidence, because it's not an in-your-face thing. It's not. He's just a cool, laid-back guy. But you get close enough and you realize, man, this guy's really full of himself. He really does believe the sky's the limit. And then you watch him throw the ball, and you watch him layer it, and you watch him throw a deep ball, and you watch the touch on the swing pass, and you see the improved footwork in the spring game, and you watch him go right down the field in 53 seconds like, I could have been doing this all along if they'd have let me. And you say, you know what? The sky's the limit. I think Carson Beck would be starting. I said it last week, so I don't want to burn this hot take too many times, but he would be starting in the NFL. Georgia has an NFL quarterback, and if they keep Carson Beck healthy, they will not lose a football game. I will say that. Now, some controversy over the number 2 pick. Is it Texas? Is it Alabama? Now, you might suggest that because the vote took place in Dallas, Texas got more votes, Had this been in Hoover, where most SEC media days were at, Alabama certainly would have been picked number 2. I'm going with Alabama over Texas because I don't think Texas can do it week in and week out. I love their marketing. I love how slick Steve Sarkisian, that's the word I come up with, slick. I hope that people take that as a positive term. Slick to me is polished. Slick to me is nothing sticks to slick. Like, this guy's so cool. Now, doesn't got a hair out of place. This sport coat must cost $1,000. Every word is right on the spot. This guy's coached under Pete Carroll. He's coached under Nick Saban. He ran a program at Washington, ran a program at USC, been in the NFL, been there, done that. Now at Texas with all these resources and oil money. The right guy at the right place. But Texas has not played in the SEC from week to week. And they're going to be in for a rude awakening. Rude is in 3 losses. 3 losses for Texas this year. Bama, I like DeBoer. They're going to get stung by Georgia in Tuscaloosa on September 28th. They're not going to be ready for that. Going to Wisconsin, playing Wisconsin, that's nice. That's good. But the speed's not going to be anything like they're going to see when Georgia comes with the G on September 28th. I don't know that Bama loses another game, though. Even though I'm not sold on DeBoer, I like the talent. You saw that there was only one team that had more All-SEC guys preseason than Georgia. It was Alabama. That was a little surprising. I don't know that Alabama has the championship depth that Georgia does. That's why I'm going to take Georgia to beat Alabama in the SEC championship game this year. Number 3, I'm going Ole Miss. Remember, I think Texas is going to get stung a couple times, but Lane Kiffin has put together a transfer class for the ages. He's got a good quarterback. He runs a good offense. I like their schedule. They got momentum. Take the Ole Miss Rebels, number 3. Texas or LSU or Missouri, 4, 5, and 6. I don't know. Put him in a hat. I don't know if we're buying Brian Kelly's confidence. He's always – I've used the word pompous before. That may have a little bit of negative content, maybe a little bit. But I like – make no mistake about it, I like Brian Kelly. I love what Brian Kelly has brought to the league. I think he's a good fit for LSU. I think he's putting together a good – I think he will eventually win an SEC championship. I do. The Notre Dame's all-time winningest coach, this guy's good. This guy's really good. We saw him come to Georgia, 2019? The Irish had Georgia on the ropes, and the last had no business having Georgia on the ropes, but they did. Remember that bad punt? Notre Dame field? Yeah, I know you remember. The red lights lit up. The fans won that game, folks. Kirby will tell you that. There were like 5 or 6 motion penalties that bailed the Dogs out that night. So I like LSU. Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz, I kind of had a sort of an apology moment. And when you're a sports writer, you don't really apologize by saying I'm sorry to a coach. You apologize by tossing him a softball question and setting him up for a moment. So there I was in the big room, 400 or 500 people. Eli Drinkwitz is up there. Just a couple of years ago, he's on the hot seat. Well, last year he was on, they're like, was Eli Drinkwitz going to keep his job? Hasn't been over 500 in the SEC. Yada, yada, played Georgia close, but didn't win. But now Drink, after beating Ohio State in a bowl game, and yes, a few Buckeyes opted out, but still, Missouri beat Ohio State, and the record books will show us that forever. My apologetic moment. I raised my hand, asked a question in the back of the room. I said, Coach, just a couple of years ago, you were on the hot seat. Now you're a championship contender. Can you tell us what it was like going through that moment in your career and how Missouri has risen to this level? Now, what a question that was. He went on for 5 minutes with the State of the Union and thanked all the administrators. Those people in Missouri, those boosters, they're going to empty their pockets and throw their money out and celebrate the president, how the state legislators supported him and all these good things. Okay, so I gave him his moment. But I did so knowing that they're not going to keep it up. So it was kind of a moment, but it was kind of a like, yeah, I'm going to give you a chance to put your foot in the mouth. I don't believe that Missouri, the show me state, I don't think they can have another year. I know Brady Cook's back. I know Luther Burden is the best receiver in the SEC. We know that. Georgia tried to get him, right? He's the dude. But come the end of the year, there'll be a loss on the schedule, maybe 2. And the NFL people will start talking to Luther Burden about how high he's going to be picked. And Brady Cook is going to have all this attention and expectation now. He's no longer the Cinderella story who's, oh my gosh, Brady Cook's doing better. No, it's like, oh, Brady Cook, you're a great quarterback now. Let's see. And they don't have that. Remember that running back? He looked like the guy from Walnut Grove and All the Right Moves. If you haven't seen it, Google, it's really good. This guy is gone. Those 4 yards that Missouri could get whenever they want, they're not going to get it. So there you go. Somebody from Missouri will clip this. They'll put it in my face. Look at what Mike Griffith said before the season started. That's right. I'm putting myself out there. I'm going to do every now and then. Tennessee, number 7. Sounds about right. Josh Heupel could finish a couple places above. He could finish a couple places below. How about Oklahoma coming into the league? What does this tell you about the SEC? When Oklahoma, former college football playoff team, just a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, they're playing Georgia down to the last minute in the Rose Classic game. They're picked in the middle of the league. Oklahoma is a middling SEC program in the SEC. If that's not a statement for SEC power, I don't know what is. Texas A&M number 9, that's too low. They are underestimating Mike Elko. Trust me on this. Texas A&M is going to beat Texas in the final regular season game of the year. Texas A&M will find their way into the top 5 of the SEC standings, and Mike Elko will be recognized as a genius. Auburn 10. Did Hugh Freeze really say the world needed more love or something like that? I think the guy is just inordinate, different, and sometimes good. As we saw, he took Georgia to the limit. Kirby likes this guy's acumen, right? He housed him when he was at Ole Miss, and he gave him trouble last year at Auburn. I just don't know if I buy the vibe. I think it was a good hire because Freeze is a proven coach. I think he's one of these offensive wizards. He's very good, very good, very good at setting plays up, very good at the self-scout. I'm just not convinced that Auburn has the right vibe. Kentucky, number 11. Listen, I love Brock Vandagriff. Love him. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. I think Georgia could have gone 13-1 with Brock Vandagriff last year too. I really do. He's that good of a quarterback with weapons around him. I'm a little concerned for Brock Vandagriff in that I don't know that Kentucky has the support cast that he's going to need to get through the season without getting beat up. Because let me tell you, Brock Vandagriff is not a guy that's going to duck out of bounds before the hit. He's not a guy that's going to slide in front of the first down marker. He's going to try to put this team on his shoulders because that's who he is. And early in the season, they're going to be dangerous. But by the end of the year, you get 3-4 losses. Even with Jamon Dumas-Johnson in the middle of the defense, just a couple of years ago, he was the heart and soul of the Dogs defense in 2022. Now he's at Kentucky. Will the players around JDJ respond to him like they did at Georgia? What's that locker room going to be like? Kentucky, kind of a dark horse team. I just kind of go, they're going to beat somebody they shouldn't, but I just don't think they got the quality depth to make the college football playoff. Florida 12, we're going to talk to Matt Hayes about Florida and Billy Napier. Best thing you say if you're a Georgia fan about Florida is thank you for giving us your best player by not starting Trevor Etienne. The guy that made first team All-SEC did not start for Billy Napier. He brought another running back with him from Louisiana that he started over him. Fatal flaw. The last 4 teams, listen, I really want to see South Carolina and Shane Beamer win because I think Shane Beamer is a good guy that does it the right way. It's very positive. He likes his team. He knows they're going to be picked low, and he's told us at Media Day that they're going to surprise some people, and maybe they will, and I hope they do because I like Shane Beamer, and I like his attitude, and I like the positivity that he brings. Same with number 14, another former Kirby assistant, Sam Pittman. We all love Sam Pittman. I don't know anybody that doesn't like Sam Pittman. I think he's a whale of a football coach. I think he's a whale of a person. Again, personnel, though. I just don't know that Arkansas has the personnel. And then Mississippi State and Vanderbilt, they're doomed. I don't know what to say. I wish I could give them more encouragement, but I can't. Cowbells, Nashville, great scene, no football teams. That's going to wrap up the first segment. And coming up next, segment 2 brought to you by Ingalls. It's Matt Hayes from 1010XL in Jacksonville and Saturday Down South.
Do you know Ingalls only sells USDA choice and prime cuts of meat? Maybe it's time to reward yourself. Our butchers cut all our meat fresh in the store every day. Grass-fed, organic, you name it. Not only that, we'll even cut it to order just the way you like it. And we grind meat fresh in the store multiple times a day. It's all in the bag. That's the best meat in town for the best folks in town. Ingalls, low prices, love the savings.
Well, welcome back to the program. And as promised, now we've got a college football insider. Matt Hayes works down there in Jacksonville, 1010 XL. Of course, most people know Matt works for Sporting News, had worked for the Sporting News. He's done some Saturday Down South stuff. You'll see his articles, breaking stories all over the place, as well as some electric commentary. So, Matt, you were in Dallas, as was I, at the SEC Media Days. Does Texas? What, I guess, big 10,000-foot takeaway just jumping into this?
It's fun. Texas and Oklahoma, baby. Although I do think it's interesting how, everybody's just assuming that Texas is just going to roll right to the conference championship game. And I look at that and I see Texas and Oklahoma, and I see two teams that don't know what it's like to play on the road in this league. And I think in the SEC, if you are not playing at a high level on the road, and I don't care who it is, well, I mean, say Vanderbilt. I don't care who it is, basically, on the other side. If they're playing at a high level and you're not, you're on the road, you've got problems. And I don't know that they've got an idea. I'm sure Sark obviously does because he's been involved in it. He gets it. And I'm sure Brent Venables can tell his players, over and over, here's what it's going to be like. But until you've hit that environment, until you've gone into Starkville and you hear those cowbells, until you've gone into the swamp and heard that noise, until you've gone in, to Saturday night in Sanford Stadium, it's a different deal, man. It just is.
No, there really is. Now that said, let's give Texas their due. They were able to load up and beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa last year by 10 points. I believe that was, I want to say this, Dad. I think this is right. I think that was Nick Saban's first non-conference home loss since 2007. So, and that was a remarkable win. And Texas,
it's a one-off. That's a one-off, man. It's a one-off. When you're doing it week after week, believe me, when you're, you can go from as these earbuds are falling out of my ears, you can go from playing, the Oklahoma game to playing on the road at Iowa State. It's different when you go from playing the Oklahoma game and a conference game, and then you go on the road against LSU, or then you go on the road against, those are like, it's a different animal altogether. That's kind of my point. I understand that Texas went in to beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa, and that was an unbelievable win, a phenomenal win, a statement win for Sark. But that stuff's got to be done over and over.
Well, to that point, Matt, I was setting you up to be correct. I was not trying to disprove your theory. So to that point, I look at this stretch of games last year, and I ask myself how Texas would have done if they only beat Houston 31-24 on the road. What if that game is South Carolina? What if that game is Texas A&M? What if that game is LSU? What if that game is Florida? Then they needed overtime to win at home against Kansas State. Then they go to TCU. They win over TCU 29-26 on the road. A 29-26 win at TCU is a loss in the SEC. A 31-24 win at Houston is a loss in the SEC. A 26-16 win at Iowa State is, especially if Iowa State was betting against themselves. And if you saw that story recently on the betting with Iowa and Iowa State, just bad joke, but Google it.
Got it.
Real bad betting last year. But to your point, you get down the throes of the second half of the season. And because, look, I don't believe that Texas was one of the 4 best teams in the nation last year. But that win over Alabama and that Big 12, the transitive properties kicked in. They beat Bama. Bama beats Georgia, even though they played Bama.
You love that transitive property, by the way. You love that.
Well, I think this is something that's used commonly, right? When you're trying to figure out who's better. Well,
it is. I'll give it to you, yeah.
Right? So, I mean, did you think Texas was one of the 4 best teams in the country last year?
I think Georgia was one of the 4 best teams in the country. And if you were going to ask me who were the 4 best teams in the country last year, honestly, I would have probably said Michigan, Georgia, and probably Alabama. And I might have even thrown Ohio State in there, believe it or not.
Over Washington.
Yeah, I might have. I'll tell you that right now. Everybody kind of forgets about Ohio State and that game ended on the Michigan, 25 with the interception. Ohio State was a very good team last year. But that's what this playoff's all about now. Now you're not going to have that. Now you're going to have teams in there like that. So, yeah, it'll be – and here's another thing, too, that people don't understand, Griffin. I'm sorry I'm kind of hijacking your thought process here. But Ohio State, in that sense, would have been a team that played in the first round. So Michigan would have gotten the automatic bid from the Big Ten, the bye week, I guess is the best way to put it. And Ohio State would have been the 5th or 6th ranked team. At that point, then one of those 4 teams has got to deal with Ohio State in the second round. So that's kind of the beauty of this thing. I think that people don't understand. It's people say, well, it's just going to be the same people playing in the championship game. No, it's not, because there will be different levels of games in the first round, second round, semis, and final. And of course, injuries play a factor. So I think the more people start to get into the dynamics of what this could be, and then once late October rolls around, there's still 50 teams still in it. People are going to love this thing.
Yeah, Georgia would have been one of those teams that would have been playing in the second round. Florida State would have had their opportunity to be in the playoff. That probably would have been 5, 6, 7 right there.
100%.
And a campus game. We would have seen a game at Stanford Stadium last year. There had been a game in Ohio Stadium. Quick sidebar. I don't know how much attention you pay, but every now and then ESPN puts out these lists. They had only 3 SEC stadiums in their top 10. Did you catch that list? And I don't know. Was it an Adam Rittenberg thing? I love Adam, but he's such a Big Ten guy.
What were the 3? So the 3 were LSU.
Let me find it.
Let me guess them. LSU, Florida, and Kyle Field.
Florida, no. Florida, no, which was really surprising because I think the Swamp is arguably one of the best top 5 venues in college football. And people who haven't been there maybe can't appreciate or understand what that place is like when it's rocking. So here's the list. And guys like me and you have actually been to these stadiums. So this isn't some, what looks good on the video game or TV. They did have Tiger Stadium number 1. Okay. I think Tiger Stadium.
That's a given. That's a given.
Number 2 was the Rose Bowl, UCLA. I'm not as enamored by the Rose Bowl as everyone else, but I'll give you that. Michigan Stadium number 3. Maybe been there, done that. Notre Dame Michigan? 4. No, Notre Dame, I'll go through the list. Notre Dame 4, Beaver Stadium, Penn State 5, Husky Stadium, Washington 6, Ohio Stadium 7, Camp Randall Stadium 8. Well, that's overrated. Bryant-Denny 9, Neyland Stadium 10. Thoughts?
I mean, where do you want me to go from here? Seriously, where do you want me to go?
Where do you go? You've been to these places. I've been to these. How's Florida?
Michigan, it's one game every other year. I've been to that place many times, okay? It's one game every other year. Maybe Notre Dame if Notre Dame's there, or you're going to get an electric environment. Other than that, it's wine and cheese. It just is. Doesn't have any reflection on the team that it wasn't a great team last year. I'm not saying that at all. All I'm telling you is the environment. If you're looking for an environment, a must place to go see a game, I mean, it's strange. Let's just put it that way. It's strange.
They didn't have Williams-Brice Stadium in South Carolina in the top 25. I mean, I've seen some upsets there. That place can get hot. I was
where was Jordan-Hare Stadium in that list?
Jordan-Hare Stadium, which is falling apart.
I mean, that's top 5.
Army like 13. Autzen, that's legit.
Well, Army's a beautiful place. It's just not.
Lane Stadium, Virginia Tech, Memorial Stadium, Nebraska. I'll buy that. There's Jordan-Hare at 17, Matt. One spot.
Is it intimidate? Well, what are the factors? Intimidation, or it's just beauty?
Stanford Stadium 18. I mean, give me a break. Have you been to a Georgia game lately? Let's take a look here. 14 college football writers were asked to rank the best stadiums in the sport. No parameters, no criteria. There you go. 21st place votes, 19 for second, all the way down. So there you go. Do you think
is Davis Wade in there by any chance? You ever gone to a game in Davis Wade?
Right? No, I'm with you. I'm guessing they don't. I mean, again, I don't want to pick on the panel, but this seems quite subjective, and I don't want to suggest these people haven't been to many SEC games, but I don't think these people have been to many SEC.
No, I love Camp Randall. Camp Randall, you've covered Michigan State for years. You know Camp Randall's like. Camp Randall's phenomenal. I love Camp Randall.
It feels like the place is going to fall apart. Same thing with Beaver Stadium. It's like somebody did a bad erector set job. It's like you got to go.
Beaver Stadium also very good. Where was Nebraska, by the way?
Like in the mid-teens. Nebraska's pretty awesome.
Nebraska's very good.
SEC very environment good. Worthy. But it's still, to see Sanford State, I've not been sitting in the 18th best game environment the last 6 years. I can tell you that. Sanford, even with the Florida game being in Jacksonville, the Notre Dame game was there. It was fantastic. The number 1 versus number 1, which nobody wants to give this number 1 versus number 1 game any love, man. When Georgia played Tennessee, I thought it was a watershed moment. You had a number 1 college football playoff ranked team against the number 1 poll team, and everybody just wants to forget that game happened. And it was an epic game. I thought it was one of Georgia's greatest football games under Kirby Smart. The way they smothered. In fact, Tennessee didn't complete a pass over 20 yards in that game until there was less than 5 minutes left. Anyway, back to modern day. Just had to do a little sidebar with my old college football buddy, Matt Hayes, who's been doing this a long time. Fantastic writer, just so gifted, definitely a level above me. And his commentary is always on the spot, and always enjoyed discussing things with Matt. So we mentioned Washington a second ago. And you kind of slapped down Kalen DeBoer and the Huskies.
You're like Holtz right now, Lou Holtz.
We're not competing. You're my friend. I think this much of you. This is why you're the guest.
Go ahead.
So you left Washington out of your top 4. That's kind of an insult to Kalen DeBoer. So, but that was then. This is now.
I don't think it's an insult. No, I don't think it's an insult to Kalen.
So DeBoer took the stage. DeBoer took the stage this week,
right?
And he was asked about filling Nick Saban's shoes, and he said, "Coaching college football is coaching college football." Matt, that seemed a bit trite to me. I'm not sure that would have been my answer. What your thoughts on Kalen DeBoer's performance?
So first, let me circle back real quick. That was not a shot at Kalen DeBoer. Okay. That was I don't think Washington was one of the 4 best teams. Has nothing to do with Kalen DeBoer. I mean, Washington beat Texas. Texas was thrown in the end zone to win the game, right? You've already said you don't think Texas was one of the 4 best teams, right? I'm looking at strictly if you're asking me what were the 4 best teams. I don't think they were one of the 4 best teams. Now, that said, I want to be very clear here, okay? The people that are saying that Kalen DeBoer, like Alabama's going to struggle or take a step back because it's a new coach and he doesn't understand the Alabama tradition and the Alabama people. This dude's won more than 90% of his games everywhere he's coached. Everywhere he's coached. He coached in 27 games at Washington. By the way, he took over a dumpster fire. Coached in 27 games. They were 24-3. Okay? That's just number 1. Get into the playoff. Get to the national championship game. Say whatever you want about whether they were worthy or not. They got to the national championship game. This dude can coach. The guy prior to him knew how to recruit. Top 5 class, top 5 class, top 5 class. He added some key players in the portal. Alabama is going to be playing for the SEC championship game at the end.
Wow. Hot take.
They will. It's going to be Georgia and Alabama. It's going to be a rematch. Anyone who thinks that Alabama is just going to go away because Kalen DeBoer doesn't understand the dynamics of Tuscaloosa, they got a ball coach there, okay? A legit ball coach. This isn't Mike DeBose following Gene Stallings, okay? This isn't Mike Shula or Mike Price or Dennis Franchione or anyone else you want to throw in there. This is a legit ball coach.
Mm-hmm. Who lost his offensive coordinator and celebrated offensive line coach, who was stirring 3-3 at Fresno State in 2020 and 9-3. I'm sure the people that saw Fresno State play in Tuscaloosa were thinking, that guy at Fresno State? That's the next guy. I see, Matt, I'm telling you, I think the jury's out. There's a couple of things that I don't want to say bother me, but maybe raise a flag a little bit. Like asking Jalen Milroe to be even more enthusiastic. I don't know that that's a good idea. I think the right idea is to have discipline because of what you said a little bit earlier. These game environments, they're going to do something to you. They're going to make you feel some kind of way when you play at Auburn, when you play at Georgia, when you play in the Swamp, when you play at Neyland Stadium. I think discipline is important to have. One of the keys, I think, for Georgia, which has not lost a road game, they lost a neutral site game to Florida in 2020. I think the last time they lost on the road would have been in Tuscaloosa in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. I think they did. Yeah, they were winning at halftime with a walk-on quarterback over one of Nick Saban's greatest teams until the second half.
COVID season too, so you can nix that one, right?
Yeah, and then the Cinderella turned into a pumpkin that night. That night, Stetson Bennett would ride again and win in 2021 and 2022, but that particular night. So I guess the DeBoer factor for me is, can this happy-go-lucky, let's have fun, let's play music stuff, reminds me a little bit of Terry Bowden in 93 taking over for the old gray horse Pat Dye. Maybe it worked for a year. Mm-hmm. But I don't think these guys came to get coached up like this. They came to win there. You said he had key players. He also lost key players. He lost the best safety in the league, Caleb Downs.
Yeah, maybe the best defensive player in the country, in Caleb Downs. Yeah.
So I've got now I'm with you. I'm more inclined to pick Alabama over Texas because of what you said, the week to week. So now that we've knocked out
wait, before you go further, hang on. I'm also inclined to pick Alabama because you watched Michael Penix at Indiana, correct?
I did.
A guy that was a talented guy, but really was very raw. Okay. Am I fair in saying that he was very raw?
When he came out of high school, he was a Tennessee
Okay.
commit, and then
He was very raw at Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Had a couple nice games, including the upset of Penn State, but was very raw.
And beat Michigan.
A completely different player at Washington. And that's because of the development of, obviously, Ryan Grubb was no longer there, but Nick Sheridan, the quarterback's coach, was there.
Still there.
So who's now the OC at Alabama. And, of course, Kalen DeBoer, who coaches all the quarterbacks and runs offense, okay? My thing is, if he does with Jalen Milroe what he did with Michael Penix, it's not just going to be the SEC championship this team's going to be winning. It's going to be a lot more.
Well, and I'm a big Jalen Milroe guy. I was there for the Milroe miracle. I was there to watch him beat Georgia with key plays, albeit the overall numbers weren't great, but he came up with a big fourth down throw. He came up with a 30-yard scramble. He's got the clutch gene, whatever you want to call it. Do they care about defense anymore? There's too many.
The grave digger. He's the grave digger, Griff.
Great. I like it. 3. So we've got Alabama, Texas, and Georgia knocked out of the picture.
Right.
Who's on deck? Who's in the on deck circle for you?
Ole Miss. 100% Ole Miss.
You believe?
Yeah, big believer in Ole Miss. Big believer in the roster that Lane has built. They're going to score a ton of points. I think they're going to be like LSU last year, except they're going to be better defensively than LSU last year.
Wow.
And that's a problem. That's going to be a problem for some people. I think they're going to get in the playoff. I think you'll see that. So that would put Alabama, Georgia,
Ole Miss,
and maybe one other. We'll see.
LSU?
Maybe we'll see. I don't know about LSU. I'm a little. So here's the thing with LSU. Clearly, I think Blake Baker's going to help him defensively. What was going on with Matt House was just ridiculous. Okay, ridiculous.
It was a joke.
The fact that the idea was, yeah, let's put Harold Perkins at the Mike spot, and when the reality is, just put him on the edge and say your job is to get the quarterback, affect the quarterback. Just stick him on the edge. If you and I, two schlub sports writers, can see that, how could Matt House not see that? He's my best player. As a freshman, he was disruptive all over the field because he was coming off the edge. Stick him on the edge. And then here's the thing is, the idea was, well, his next position in the NFL is Mike. Why? He's going to make a lot more money off the edge in the NFL. Why would you do that? Why would he do that? So, fortunately, I think Blake Baker has seen the light, or at least it's just the reality of the situation. We're going to stick him on the edge, and he's going to kick the quarterback. Now, that said, here's the pause. There's always a pregnant pause, right? So Brian Kelly, who I respect the hell out of, I think he's one of the 5 best coaches in the country.
For sure.
A great coach. Everywhere he's been a hell of a coach, and he's developed quarterbacks, and they've won big. Him saying that he doesn't think they're going to drop off at all offensively, maybe even better with Nussmeier. I think Nussmeier could be a terrific quarterback, okay? Garrett Nussmeier could be a terrific quarterback. Jaden Daniels had one of the 3 best individual seasons as a quarterback in the last quarter century. Garrett Nussmeier is not rushing for 1,100 yards. It's not happening. The pressure that Jaden Daniels put on defenses last year for that LSU offense was phenomenal. That's not happening this year. Now, maybe Garrett Nussmeier is a better thrower. And then I start to think, well, Jaden Daniels was nearly flawless as a thrower last year.
He really was. So
how good is this offense then? And Brian Kelly isn't one to be full of hyperbole. He's hyperbolic. Holy cow. I almost swore on your little podcast, which probably isn't the right thing to do. He's not a guy to go out there and just say crap to say it. He truly believes that. So I was kind of like, wait a second. An offense that as good or better than last year? I mean, then LSU is going to be a factor because they have players. And they've got players. They had players on defense last year. They just weren't coached up. So I think LSU is also part of that next level. Yeah, and Missouri. I would stick Missouri in there too. I know you're not a Missouri guy, but I think those guys are believing in what he's selling, man. And they've got a 50-year senior quarterback who has a great story, who drink and God love drink. And he admits this over and over, did everything he could to give the job to someone else. And Brady Cook just kept coming back. Terrific receiver in Luther Burden, obviously. The thing with Mizzou actually is They're better on the lines of scrimmage now. They've now have SEC lines of scrimmage, which also so does Ole Miss. And Nick Saban said that at media days. He said, I stopped Lane and I told him the difference now is Ole Miss has lines of scrimmage that can compete with Georgia and compete with Alabama. So it'll be fun.
It's going to be interesting. So it kind of a look around the top there, man. Center it back on Georgia. When you see Carson Beck, you're in Jacksonville, Carson Beck's story really well. I can't remember the last time, if there was a last time, that you had a quarterback that was a projected number 1 overall pick, that was the leading returning passer, that was the Heisman Trophy favorite, and that was the quarterback on the number 1 ranked team. Is this all too much for Beck, or is he going to check all these boxes?
Well, the last time, let's think of the last time.
Maybe Matt Leinart.
Maybe Tua. Maybe Tua.
Tua didn't have the production, I don't think. Did he? Maybe.
Tua 19. Tua at 19, I think, probably would be the closest thing. Yeah. I'm sure there's others we're forgetting, but Tua at 19 was, they had all those receivers coming back. They had, they had the offensive line. They had, Najee Harris and who was was also Brian Robinson, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
sure was, but they were loaded at running back. Yeah, probably Tua. Can he pull it off? I wouldn't put anything past Georgia right now. I think Carson was playing really well in the second half of last season, but for a couple of plays defensively, they win the SEC championship game. Michigan's not beating them in the playoff. No chance that happens. So, plus if they win that game, they're the 1 seed. They're the one overall seed.
No doubt.
So that's so Washington's out immediately there at that point, and then it's Michigan and Texas, and who knows what happens with Michigan and Texas in that game. My guess is Michigan would have won the game, but Michigan's not beating Georgia. So that's they're a few plays away from a three-peat, and from I guess that would be a 31 game win streak. Is that right?
2 more wins, yeah.
Yeah, 31.
Yeah.
They're, you cover them. They're great on the lines of scrimmage. They're great on the offensive line, which is going to be fantastic for Beck. They've put pieces around him now where they can attack people vertically. They're going to throw the ball more this year. There's no doubt they are.
Tell us about Trevor Etienne. You saw a lot of Trevor Etienne in Florida. What's your expectation of impact for Etienne?
He's a dynamic guy. He's absolutely a factor in the run game, but he's also a guy, and this, you cover Georgia. Where do you see him on like a screen? They get him outside on a screen with Tate Rutledge and those guys in front of him. It's going to be ridiculous. So I think they'll still run the ball, obviously, but they are going to throw it. They're going to go vertically. And if you've got a guy like Carson that can throw it and can throw it accurately, man, I wouldn't be throwing all 3 levels. I'd just be crushing people. And I think that's what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. Kirby Smart says, time to let the cat go play. That was what he said. That was good. I like that catchphase. And last year
I love quarterbacks, Griff. You know me, I'm a quarterback guy. And if you've got a quarterback that can sling it, that can make all three level throws and can make them accurately, man, do it. Do it. Throw the ball.
We've talked about the SEC teams that are going to be in. You mentioned Ohio State a second ago. This has got to be the biggest challenge to the SEC, right? Ohio State's got to be the odds-on favorite. I think they may be the odds-on favorite, right? Do they have a quarterback that can sling it well enough for Ohio State to win a national title?
Actually, I don't think they are the odds-on because I don't know that they have a quarterback. Now, the question is, what offense are they going to run? Because if Chip Kelly's there, they're going to run a lot of quarterback power. It's going to be a lot of between the tackles running like he did at Oregon. He didn't have a quarterback at UCLA that could do that. He didn't have like a power runner. Will Howard can be a power runner. But the question is, can he be a thrower? Is he a guy that you can consistently hope or consistently believe that can make those throws when it's 3rd and 7 and you're on the road and you need a play? And I don't know that he can be that guy. So he's certainly not the guy of the past they've had at Ohio State with C.J. Stroud and Haskins and those guys just on down the line they just had over and over and over there. He's not that guy, okay? I'm not even sure he's Kyle McCord as a thrower. So the idea then is what kind of offense do they run? Do they become more of a, here we go, power run, we're going to do a lot of zone read stuff, which is what Chip made famous at Oregon, and does that win? Does that win at a high level? Because other than quarterback, Griff, they might be the most talented team in the country, or at least close to Georgia.
I did not name a starting quarterback after spring drills, which is that's not a good thing. Unless you kind of know, you just don't want anybody to transfer out. I've seen that act before. I said in Dallas, during one SEC Network appearance that I thought Nick Saban,
one of many, by the way, one of many SEC Network appearances from Mike.
Little podcasts like that, that I didn't believe. Watching Nick Saban bask in the bright lights and the glory and everything he said was relevant in Dallas because he was the show. And I said, about halfway through the year, he's going to realize he's not relevant anymore. What he says on Saturdays isn't going to matter. And I wonder if the ego, one, can handle it. Two, the lifestyle. He looked like a prisoner watching Alabama basketball. I mean, Tuscaloosa, great for a weekend, but you don't want to live there. No offense. I spent plenty of time there. But do we really think, can we really, like, he's going to be sitting in an office in Bryant-Denny Stadium, scrolling, the internet and preparing for no. This doesn't happen. He can't be done. I got to believe he comes back. And that's why I mentioned Ohio State. If Ryan Day doesn't get it done and you're Ohio State,
just stop it right now.
You're not drinking that.
No.
Tell me why.
No. You know why? Because at the end of the day, Mr. Terry's going to go, no. And then he's going to say, okay. He's going to say, okay, I'm in my 70s. I love my wife. I'm not screwing around, man.
Steve Spurrier loved his wife too. The golf would still be coaching if he could. He didn't have the hips. He'd still be out there.
I cannot see Nick Saban in his, soon to be mid 70s saying, yeah, what the heck? Let's take another run at it. Okay. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of work being a college head coach right now. And I don't think he wants to, it's not so much the work. Okay. I don't think he wants to deal with the entitlement that now is baked into players, to the high school players. He doesn't want to deal with that. Like, his whole thing is, why am I paying you? Right? You haven't done anything for me, right? So I don't think he wants to deal with that. That doesn't mean he doesn't like paying players. I think he's all for players receiving salaries, players receiving stipends, or whatever we're going to call it when finally they do share revenue, which they will do by next year. I don't think he's against that. I think he's against the mindset of what's coming to him from young guys and what young guys expect now, instead of the idea of, I want to earn it. And it's not all young guys. I don't want to paint with a wire brush and say all these high school guys are like that, because they're not. Okay. Clearly there are rare instances. And it's a bigger percentage than you think, but it's now baked into the cake. And I think that's why he doesn't want to do it. I think he just doesn't want to deal with that crap.
Dealing with that crap, such as speeding tickets, such as off-field transactions. Georgia arrived with the big question. What people didn't ask about Carson. They didn't wonder about Carson. They didn't wonder about the defense. They didn't ask questions about Glenn Schumann or Mike. They said, what's Kirby going to do about the speeding tickets? Matt, what we found out was groundbreaking on dognation.com, that they're going to be fining players. They're fining.
Really?
Fining. They take money. They're going to the you want to play? Okay, we're going to take your money. 5-figure fines for some of these traffic offenses. Is this the answer? Did Georgia make a mistake putting themselves out there? Was this going to be used against them, or is this the beginning of a new trend of how the NFL problems created by an NFL system will be solved with NFL-like fines?
So here's the thing. I don't know that this can be transitive to other programs or to college football in general. I don't know. I do know this. Kirby he had no other decision. He had to do something, because what he was saying wasn't working. Right. What he was doing prior wasn't working. So he had to do something. So he's thinking now along the lines, all right, what does the NFL do? What does an NFL coach does? An NFL coach, they fine them. They take their money away. In the NFL, there's two things that hurt players: taking their money away or taking their playing time away. Because if you take their playing time away, you're eventually taking their money away, because that's how they earn their money. So I think that's probably what he thought. He probably thought, look, I've done everything else. And at the end of the day, and I hate saying this because it removes responsibility from the coach, and it shouldn't. But at the end of the day, this is an individual decision. Yeah. These guys decide, I'm going to go out of my Charger and I'm going to run 110 and a 55. Okay. And that's it. It's an individual decision. So what do you do then? What do you do to keep them from making that decision? And he's tried different ways. Some that he's said publicly, some he hasn't said publicly. I'm sure he's done things that he hasn't told us what they are, and it hasn't worked. So now it's all right. Now I'm going to hit it where it matters. Now I'm going to hit in the pocketbook, and let's see what happens.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Stadium steps, run, early morning workouts, game suspensions, and they actually suspended a guy. Well, they dismissed a guy for a traffic.
Yeah, I was going to say, he says they dismissed somebody.
I don't know that I've ever heard of a player being dismissed because of a traffic violation.
Certainly it's happened. I don't know that Kirby went up there and said, I don't think anyone's ever, or no one's ever done that. I mean, of course they have. It's happened somewhere before. I'm sure of that. Okay.
This was a guy in the 2 deep that was going to help Georgia win football games.
Right.
That was a very so mission accomplished. Is everybody off Georgia's case for not caring or not, or is this still going to be?
Well, my point is he kicked the kid off the team and it's still happening. That's kind of my point. So he's now, okay, money is everything for these guys. Clearly it is. Let's see what happens when I take money away from them. And I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know if he's talked to the collective about that and the collective says they're going to hold back.
I don't know. A collab. The collective is actually the one that does it. It is they work in collaboration. The collective has the power, has the contracts, but
but doesn't that have to be in the contract that that money can be taken away or clawed back, or
you got UGA's got in. Certainly, the UGA has some influence over this. You would think.
I hope so. There's going to be some lawsuits coming. I can tell you that.
Well, there probably will be some lawsuits coming anyway, which leads me to Jaden Rashada. Now, this is a guy that started out at Florida, and I thought Steve Spurrier.
How about that segue, huh? Just this little softball for you right there.
Yeah, I thought that Steve Spurrier made a pretty good point a couple months ago when I was talking to him about this, and he said, had a coach at Florida by the name of Charlie Pell, had to fire him because he was paying players. He said, now we got a coach in trouble because he's not paying a player. I mean, what a way the game has changed.
Right.
Tell me about Jay. He played a bit at Arizona State. Is this a future star? What did Georgia get with this guy that started out as a
I mean, I don't know much about him other than what I've seen. I saw some high school tape of him. I saw clearly what happened at Arizona State last year. I don't know if he was going to win that job, the quarterback job. He's clearly got talent. He clearly has talent. And I think if you're going to go somewhere, somebody that has proven they can develop quarterbacks, Mike Bobo has proven he can develop quarterbacks. So I think it was a smart move to go to the best program in the country right now, but also a place where you can be developed. But also, I'm sure he knows, Griff, that they're going to keep recruiting. They're not just going to stop recruiting. They're going to keep recruiting that position, and they'll recruit over him, just like they were same with Carson Beck. Carson knew that. They're going to keep recruiting. So he's got to work. Let's see now what happens with, all right, now after all this fanfare of committing to one school and decommitting, signing with one school, getting out of the NIL, going to another school, leaving that school, going to another school. Now let's see what happens when, okay, no one's looking at you anymore. Now how does he respond? How does he work? How does he prepare? Will he be ready? I mean, I don't know. Will he be the backup when the season begins? It's a great question because, and heaven forbid, you hate to say this, I love Carson Beck. I want to see him have a huge season and win the Heisman. But he's one play away from going down, be it for one game or 6 games or the entire season. So is Jaden Rashada ready? Or is it Gunnar Stockton? Who is it?
I don't think either one of them are good enough. Speaking of nobody pays attention to you anymore, the Florida Gators, and Billy Napier was up in front of the audience the other day, quoting Bible scripture. We're going to the Bible. We're going to the book of Hebrew. I'm not exaggerating. He really did quote the book of Hebrew here. And I think it had something to do with faith. And I don't know if he was like talking to himself or
it's plural, by the way, Hebrews. Plural.
Hebrews. Yeah, well, yeah. Plural. Sorry about that. So he's quoting the book of Hebrews. Right. And he's talking about the experience coming back, and he's talking about the biggest story is Graham Mertz, who I don't even know if most people know who he is.
Right.
All this yardage that he's compiled, and my hot take on the Gators was that the Havner Center was going to be the big impact, because when you get a new building, people hang around. I've seen it at Georgia twice, 2017, led to it at the big indoor, the House of Pain, and then again in 2021. These buildings do have an effect. Right. But Florida's schedule, I mean, give me the real take. Florida football like no one else. What's the real take on Billy Napier and what's going to happen this year in Gainesville?
I'm so tired of the schedule. I'm just so tired of it, man. Because if you have any kind of inner fortitude as a player, as a coach, your whole thing is schedule. They have to play us. Like, I can guarantee you, Georgia's not worried about having to play Alabama, right? No, Alabama's got to play us. That's the way you have to look at it. So I'm tired of that whole schedule argument. Okay, I'm tired of it. And you could say, well, they're playing better teams. Okay, great. It's different in college ball. And college ball is not like the NFL. College ball, even if the other guy has a better roster, you can still win because college ball is more of an individual can make a play, and an individual is that much better than others. And you also have to throw into the idea of there are busted plays all over the field in college football. There's not in the NFL. Like how many times, Griff, you ask a DC or an OC, what happened there? I had a bust. Yeah, we had a bust. That's like the all-time response for all coaches. Yeah, we had a bust. In other words, a guy wasn't in the right position, didn't do the right thing, okay? That's why in college football, you can win games you're not supposed to win. There's busts everywhere, every snap of the game. So I don't like this. It's a tough schedule, man. They only need to win 6 or 7 games, and he's safe. Imagine that, Griff. Imagine that. You've been around this league long enough. You know the expectations of Florida. You know what they want, what they desire. Imagine the idea that if they win 8 games, their coach is safe. After 2
I don't have to imagine
games.
it. I saw it, and I called Dan Mullen out for saying they had a pretty good season at 8-4, and all the Florida people said, "Yeah, wait a minute, no, 8-4."
How low does the bar have to be for you to accept 8 wins? If you're Florida, you're the flagship university in the state that has the most Division I talent, skill talent of any in the country. If you have that geographic footprint, if you're close enough to South Georgia where you can go into Georgia and get high school recruits, which they did many times, including a guy named Kwesi Green and many others that I could roll off. It's happened before, okay? How can you just sit there and accept 8-4 and say, yeah, we're good. We're on our way. I don't see it. I can't even imagine. It's amazing how far the bar of acceptability has been lowered, okay? I can only imagine what Spurrier thinks about that. It just must make him want to puke, seriously. But I will say this, all that being said, I spoke with Graham Mertz. Graham Mertz is a sharp dude, man. He had a pretty good season. He had much better second half of the season when they started to throw the ball to second, third level, and they couldn't protect worth a flip last year, okay? They were terrible on the offensive line. They think they're going to be better on the offensive line. They've got good guys on the outside. If they can protect him, I think he's going to have a big year. I don't think big year as in a 10 or 11 wins, but I think he's going to have a big season. And I've been saying this over and over too, Griff. If DJ Lagway is playing any kind of significant time for you at Florida, you're in a bad spot. You are in a bad spot. The best thing that could happen for Florida right now is Graham Mertz goes in and plays the entire season, doesn't come out, and Lagway plays, 6, 7, 8 games a game, 8 plays a game. Because they're going to win games because of Graham Mertz, period.
Okay. I mean, there you heard it. They're going to win games. The Gators are going to win games. And
I'm not saying it's going to be 10 or 11. They're going to win games because of him is what I'm saying.
So will Billy Napier have his job at the end of the year?
I don't know. I don't know what the new president's going to think. I have a new president. Ben Sass has announced his retirement or resignation. He wants to be with his family. So they're going to have to hire a new president.
Wow, that's important. We need to know what the UF president thinks.
Yeah, well, you get a new – let's be honest. The president makes the decision of who the football coach is 100% every time. The AD can come to the president and say, hey, I've got these 2 guys I'm talking to or these 3 guys I'm talking to. What do you think? And then the president will make the decision. Yeah. So it depends on what the president wants. Depends on who he wants for his AD too. So, and I like Scott Strickland. I think Scott's done a nice job there.
I think he's the only reason that Billy's still there, honestly.
Yeah, he's the only that's number one. And number 2, he hired Billy. So there's the connection there. There's no doubt about it. So if you get a new president, does a new president want to stick with Scott Strickland, who's done a marvelous job other than that head coach, football coach hire? What do you do then?
Yeah. Well, I think you called Tennessee and you asked the fans what they thought about Joe DePietro and Jimmy Cheek and when the decisions they made for about 10 years when Vanderbilt went 5-5 against them, because it sounds to me like Florida is selling themselves on.
You're dangerously close to that is what you are. You're exactly right.
I mean, you really are.
Exactly right.
You really are. It's unfortunate. Matt.
In Vanderbilt is, and real quick, you know what Florida's Vanderbilt is right now? Kentucky. Kentucky's won 3 of the last 5 against Florida.
Matt, thank you so much. Tell people where they can find your – I listen to you on 1010 XL in Jacksonville. I love doing your game day shows, but where can people find you on a daily basis?
So it's 1010 XL in Jacksonville, obviously, on from 2 to 4, and then Saturday Down South, where they can read me. And you can catch me on X. It's X, Griff. It's not Twitter. It's X at Matt Hayes CFB.
Great stuff. At Mate Hayes CFB. Matt, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. Next up, the hot and cold segment. We'll be right back.
Want to make sure your family stays comfortable all year long? Our family of trained comfort specialists are available anytime to service or repair your system. Or it may be time to replace your old units with a new trained HVAC system.
We are a locally owned family business, and we carefully select the technicians who we send into your home.
At Anytime Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing, we are large enough to handle all of your HVAC and plumbing needs,
but small enough to care.
Call today to take advantage of our 3-visit annual maintenance plan.
And we're back, and I thank Anytime Heating and Cooling and Plumbing for their sponsorship of the program. Do fantastic work. Now time for the hot and cold segment. I'm going to start out with hot. How about Charlie Condon, right? You thought baseball season was over. Well, it is. But Charlie Condon has cashed in on his signing bonus. Now, he was taken number 3 overall by the Colorado Rockies. How about $9.25 million largest signing bonus in history for Charlie Condon, the only one of 3 players to lead the nation in home runs and hitting in a season. So Charlie Condon, fantastic Georgia Bulldog baseball player. You better believe that Wes Johnson, the baseball coach, who's working on a number 1 class, will be telling all the recruits about coming to Georgia and working your way into the top 5 of the draft and signing for 9 points. Because Wes is known as a pitching guy, but Charlie, a hitter. It shows you that Wes Johnson's baseball mindset, not just for pitchers, it's for the hitters too. What else is hot? You heard me talk to Matt Hayes about Kirby Smart and the fines and Josh Brooks. Listen, this was an aggressive move. Matt said they didn't have a choice. They did and they didn't. They needed to do something, but I think it was ingenious. And the fact that they were proactive and they talked about it. Yeah, you don't normally hear programs that we're going to do more is typically, no, we're going to tell you what we're going to do. And we're going to let you know how hard these players are being hit. The level of accountability at Georgia is as high as anywhere in the country right now for football. Totally believe that. What else is hot? You may not like it, but Texas football. Steve Sarkisian comes out. Quinn Ewers comes out. This is a program that is not apologizing for coming in with this all gas, no brakes slogan, which is trademarked, by the way. Arch Manning in reserve. Quinn Ewers, the co-Heisman Trophy favorite. They've added a few transfers to beef up the defense. The Texas swag is real. They're going to be unbeaten when they play Georgia. The bad news for Texas is they're going to be coming off an emotional win over Oklahoma. It's going to be very hard for Texas, number 1, to match that emotion. And number 2, those guys lined up across from them wearing that G, they're going to look a little bit different than them cherry helmets at Oklahoma. So expect Georgia to win that football game. There's a really hot take for you. Cold, coaches quoting Bible scripture. I don't mind that in practice. I don't mind that in the locker room. I don't mind a player taking a knee. I don't have any issue with any of that. I'm a big believer in freedom of speech. But I'm not sure that the podium of the SEC Media Days is the place to be leaning on Bible scripture to explain why your team is going to be better. I thought that was a bit of a reach. But it is Billy Napier. It wasn't out of character. It wasn't like, boy, this guy's gone off the deep end. No, this is who Billy is. Every game he wants to talk about life and how football's like it. And that's fine as long as you're winning. But when you lose, you're going to get tarred and feathered and barbecued. Kalen DeBoer made my cold list. I thought Kalen DeBoer was fantastic at the SEC spring meetings. I got to talk to him one-on-one. I thought he controlled the room of 20 people. But when he got in front of 500 people, I thought he was a bit too trite when he said coaching football is coaching football. What's it like to replace Nick Saban? Well, coaching football is coaching football. That's not the right answer. That's not the right answer. I'm not sure what was the right answer, but that made it just sound too easy, right? You just go out there and you coach football. You just step into the shoes of a guy that's won 7 national championships. You just step into a tradition-laden program that's won national titles with multiple coaches. You just step into the defending SEC championship team. You just step into an SEC schedule that starts with the Georgia Bulldogs. I didn't think enough reverence was paid. And again, I'm grading these guys after I don't know how many of these 20-some media days that I've been to. I just thought DeBoer was a bit too – I thought Jalen Milroe, when he ran over to the stage to Nick – I'm not sure how that played on TV, but I didn't it was just kind of like high schoolish to me. This Jalen Milroe enthusiasm stuff, and they're pumping him up to, you heard me mention that to Matt Hayes last. I'm just not sure that's a good idea. So that's my hot and cold segment, and that's the show on the beat for the night. I really appreciate you joining me. If you have comments, if you haven't already put them in there, put them in there. Hit me up on X at Mike Griffith 32. Don't forget Dog Nation Daily. So check us out, dognation.com. We got a Dog Nation YouTube channel